This one, Honorable Mr. Samani.
Just on this imposition of wealth tax, I don't know why the imposition has been postponed. I'm asking this question because while we are told that there will be wealth tax and it will come someday, the poor have been forced to pay taxes in various forms because this is an indication of the disparity. See, everybody knows that we have to pay more taxes. There's no question about that. But in taxation, there has to be a very strict yardstick on fairness. So that fairness index is still not achieved, I think, and that's an area to look at. Last budget cycle, when the budget debates were going on, Honorable Iran Vikramaratne, myself and a few others, publicly proposed a different tax structure that doesn't impact on the poor. Now, we did a public, demonstration of how that can be achieved and so on. Doesn't seem to have been taken on board. Now, I'm saying that also because I agree with the President that all of us have to do this together. And the discussion must happen here, not on the streets. But if the discussion is not to happen on the streets, then it must happen here. It must, already in this forum, Harsha had a half a minute say, and now I'm put my hand up and I'm saying something, right? So if this is a forum where the government just explains and goes away, then it's not a robust discussion at all, and it won't achieve that particular objective that we discuss openly, transparently, and go together. I also agree with the President that the ethnic issue, as he mentioned, must be resolved. And you can't say we'll do it after the economic crisis is over. No, it won't happen in that way. It's intrinsically connected. As we speak, we have a massive public protest going on in Batticaloa. We have another massive public protest going on in Mana, and even bigger protest happening in Vaunia. How many of us even know that it is happening? So, the archaeology department is running amok. Right? And I just looked at the logo of the archaeology department. It's a Dagaba and the Dharma Chakra. So is that the only archaeology relevant to this country? So the fairness question and the public support, particularly to pull us out of a difficult economic situation, you must have the support of everybody, and that's not just only economical support. It's a perception and an understanding that everybody is being treated equally and fairly. And that is severely lacking, and we are willing to participate in these discussions. If we know there are suggestions and our views will be taken on board. And all of those would be constructive suggestions, I can assure you.
In fact,
and I, okay.
Yes.
Far as I am concerned, I have said Sri Lanka's economic question has two E's. Both have to be resolved. Our first priority was getting the IMF agreement. But in the meantime, there were parallel discussions with the representatives of the Tamil from the north and the east. And we have come to agreements now, which we will start working on just after Sinhala New Year holidays are over to implement it. I know the one in Vaunia is about the destruction of the temple. That's one which you've asked the police to investigate. And secondly, archaeology, we had one meeting in Vaunia, we had one meeting here, but there are still problems with archaeology, and there are other problems with forest department, which applies both to the north and to the north central province and Monaragala. So we will be looking at those issues next week. In addition, now we want to start on System B. A part of it would be for the companies that are looking for land to export food to Singapore and as well as Middle East, the rest will go to the people of Eastern Province. And that will be fairly substantial. Then there are the other issues which we will be resolving in time to come.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honorable Mr. Sumandiran, in fact, that was going to be a question of mine as to the reaction of the North and East, in your view, to the tax proposals and the level of cooperation that can be expected from it. But you've already addressed a bulk of that on the concept of the perception of fairness being a key player in the acceptance of proposals of this nature. Is there anything further you wish to comment on before I hand over to the Honorable Eran Wickramaratne for his observation?
Just one matter. As the President said, we're having discussions together, and I only hope that we move forward in that without postponing those reforms as well. We've also had discussions with regard to how the North and East can contribute towards the economic growth, because there is a high level of potential there. So we've looked at special development funds, different kinds of investments coming in, all of that. And we will cooperate with the government with regard to realizing all of that, because, as was mentioned by you and others at the beginning of this discussion, IMF bailout package and thereafter the borrowings will only make us more into debt, take us more into debt. For growth to happen, there has to be a plan that sort of pulls us out of this, of this mess. And for that, investments are key. And there is great potential if we target certain areas and address those issues. That's one. The other is the corruption susceptibilities was one of those concerns that IMF mentioned. Now, the President mentioned regaining Sri Lanka effort. But, during that time, there were two privatized ventures that were reversed. Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation and Lanka Marine Services Limited. I was counsel for Mr. Vasudeva Nanayakkara in both those cases. Because there were those two cases, those were reversed. How many more went unaddressed? Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation, asset was valued at 6 billion when it was in fact more than 125 billion. So, you start on this process. I agree with the President, the state can't do business, but you start divesting, the huge opening for corruption.
I'm coming into the SOE question.
Can I tell you on that? Firstly, for North, we are coming up with a big development plan for North, and North will be the biggest beneficiary of green hydrogen. I think that will really catch up and North will be able to catch up on many of the other provinces. So is the East with development of Trincomalee and the tourism. The other one will be the NCP, again with its potential for modernized agriculture. As far as insurance was concerned, it was transparent. And we sold it. Now we took it back. If you ask the chairman insurance, the company could have got far more in the insurance. Now I think you have lost Ronald, you have lost your lead in some of the sectors. So, okay, we've got to decide at the end of the day, are we going ahead or not? There's no fraud. It was a question of valuation. This will come again in this instance. So we've got to either make up our mind. Are we going to privatize or not? That's what we have to do. If the courts want to interfere, then the courts must find the money. That's all I can say.
I will come on to the question, sir, on SOE. Just as you say,